From the EBKV studios in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, you're listening to Brotherly Pod, the official podcast of BrotherlyPuck.com. Welcome, everybody, to BPW Radio. I'm your host, Dan the Flyer Fan, here to talk all this week's Flyers news, and there has been quite a bit of it. Let's start with the obvious talking point. Cam Talbot is now a Flyer. On Friday night, early Saturday morning, Anthony Stolarz was traded to Edmonton straight up for Cam Talbot. That has obviously sparked quite a bit of, I don't know if controversy is the right word, but, you know, it has definitely separated Flyers Twitter in terms of their thoughts, their reactions, what they think of the trade. I was very angry about it on when it first broke on Friday night, but, you know, it's been 2 days, and I've had the opportunity to calm down a little bit and think through it, and I've read everybody's opinions on what they think about it, and I'm torn. I'm not a fan of the trade. I think it sets a bad precedence for something that we're probably going to see a lot over the next couple of years. You know, the Flyers have a whole bunch of these middle-of-the-road prospects that are going to more than likely need to be dealt for, mass sets and other picks and things that are going to be traded, over the next couple of years here. So, I don't think it sets good precedence. I think when you take on a player who's 7 years older, who's on a much heftier contract for this season, they're both up at the end of the year, but Cam Talbot was making well over $3 million more than Anthony Stolarz was. So, you do shore up the goaltending for the future. They have not re-signed Talbot yet. There's been no rumors of him being re-signed. Fletcher says that he does want to give him some time and wants to, kind of observe his play before he signs him. So, in theory, that's good. And, Cam Talbot is friends with Carter Hart. They work out together in the summer. So, if it makes Carter Hart happy, again, I think I was one of them that was very unhappy about this, but I think at the end of the day, it is just a backup goaltender. Carter Hart, is going to be the guy moving forward. You got the rumors are that Felix Sandstrom and Kirill Usmenko are going to come to the Phantoms next season, which are two other top goalie prospects. So whatever it was that they saw in Cam Talbot, obviously they really wanted him, but he will more than likely back up Carter Hart next season. I hope he doesn't get too big of a contract. I think that's the big thing now. He is a veteran of 284 NHL games. He has played 31 games this season with 10 wins. He has a .336 goals against average and an .893 save percentage. So those numbers are not very good. They have been gradually decreasing over the past few seasons. He had his big year in 2016-17 where he played 73 games with 42 wins. He had a .239 GAA and a .919 save percentage. Last season he played 67 games with 31 wins. He had a .302 GAA and a .908 save percentage. And this season it's been rough. I've heard the excuse, oh, well, Daniel, Edmonton's a bad team, but, the Flyers aren't exactly kind to their goaltenders either. And, even the past few games this week against Pittsburgh and Detroit, Carter Hart has been hung out to dry quite a few times. So, I hope Talbot can at least provide a solid backup. I think at this point that's pretty much all you can ask of him. But, I think that it's going to be an interesting trade. I think hopefully, I was a big fan of Anthony Stolarz, probably bigger than most. So I'm not overly, I'm disappointed to see him go to a team that I really don't like very much in Edmonton. I think the Flyers did give up on him a little too early, but obviously I think the injury history there is a little too much to ignore for a guy that you're going to count on for, probably 30 games next season. So overall, I think it's going to be an interesting move. As for the Flyers themselves, they are 27-24-7 through 58 games. They have 24 left, clinging to their playoff hopes. They have a 2.5% chance as of Sunday morning. Now, they do play later tonight against Detroit, who they struggled with yesterday. They did beat them in overtime thanks to Travis Konechny's goal, but they blew a 4-goal lead in the third period, which took them to overtime in the first place. The Flyers are 15 points out of first place, which is still held by the Islanders, and I believe the Islanders have a 5-point lead over the Capitals for second place at this point. Third place, the Flyers are 8 points out of third place, and they are 7 points out of the second wildcard spot, which is currently held by, I believe, the Hurricanes? Yes, Carolina is currently in the second wildcard spot with 68 points. The first wildcard spot is held by the Montreal Canadiens with 69 points. The Sabres have taken a pretty big fall here. They're at 63, so they're still ahead of the Flyers, but they're definitely not in the immediate threat. Carolina's second wildcard spot was 68 points. Behind them are the Penguins with 67 points. So the Flyers really, really need to keep it moving here. Their upcoming schedule, we talked about this on Angry and Negative this week, but it's not looking all that fun. They have played Detroit in Detroit tonight. They then play the Lightning, Canadiens, Penguins, Sabres, Blue Jackets, and Devils. I believe 3 of those teams are in playoff positioning. The Penguins are fighting for the wild card spot as well, and the Sabres and Devils. Obviously, the Devils are. I believe the Devils are already out of it. Just about out of it. I don't know if they're mathematically out of it yet, but they have 52 points, dead last in the Metro. So it's going to be a rough week for the Flyers. I think that they need to really, really win tonight's game in Detroit with some kind of ease. I don't think, as of this recording, whether there's word on who starts. Carter Hart did start against the Red Wings yesterday, so I would assume it's Mike McKenna. But, in a crucial game like this, they may have to go with Hart. But, Hart really hasn't looked all that great lately. The Flyers' goaltending has not been super fantastic this week. Carter Hart did struggle against the Penguins on Monday, leading to that 4-1 loss, but it really wasn't his fault. But he did allow a couple softies. You got Stolars, who struggled against the Wild on Tuesday. He has since been traded, obviously. But again, that was not the best week for him. Then Carter Hart didn't look fantastic during the Red Wings. I believe this is only the second time in his career to this point that he's posted back-to-back sub-900 save percentage. He had an 868 versus Detroit and an 889 versus Pittsburgh. So, overall, obviously this kid isn't 100% perfect. He is going to have bad games, just as every goalie does. But, I don't know if it's smart to roll McKenna. I don't think it's smart to roll Carter Hart back-to-back either already. But, again, I think if they are still convinced that they have a shot at the playoffs, they're going to ride that 2.5% chance for all it's worth. They could start Hart. I believe their next game is Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday the 19th against the Lightning. So I would maybe refrain from starting Hart because I would rather have Carter Hart start against the Lightning than Mike McKenna or Cam Talbot for that matter. So hopefully they roll Mike McKenna tonight, and they give Hart the Lightning on Tuesday. If the Flyers are still in at that point, if they lose to the Red Wings tonight, it's going to be a big hit to their playoffs. So, again, I talked about this on Angry Negative this week. They got to go essentially undefeated for the rest of the season if they really, really want a shot at the playoffs. But again, I don't know what's going to happen there. Hopefully they can beat Detroit. They should have beat Detroit easily yesterday, but a third period collapse did them in. But some good things did happen versus Detroit. Shane Gostisbehere ended a 18-game goalless streak. They scored a goal. Shane Gostisbehere also has 9 assists in his last 8 games as well. So he has been playing much better. The trade Gostisbehere crowd hopefully has quieted a little bit after this. The offense is starting to roll again. So it has been a very rough season for Ghost, but overall, it does seem like he's kind of getting himself back on the right track, which is good because, the Flyers are going to need all hands on deck as the fight for the playoffs continues. Another guy broke a long goalless streak. Scott Lawton scored his first goal in 28 games dating back to mid-December, I believe. December 15th against Vancouver was the last time he scored. So Obviously, that must feel good for him, Lawton, despite not producing offense at the level that we think that he could. He has been very, very good this season. One of the more consistent Flyers throughout this season. So it is nice to see him get a goal here and there. Hopefully that, breaks his dry spell and he can, continue to produce more offense and be part of this team moving forward. Again, they're going to need all hands on deck for the playoffs. I think Scott Lawton, who has been a very, very solid two-way guy this year, could really develop his game moreover if he adds a bit of offense. So hopefully this goal turns him around, can lead to something good, and that the Flyers continue to play well in his presence. Well, we got a whole bunch of Twitter questions today, so let's get to them. First one is from Noah. What do you think happens when Elliott's conditioning stint is done? That's a good question. I think Brian Elliott will more than likely be traded. I don't think they are going to keep him, especially now that Cam Talbot's around. There really is no reason to keep Brian Elliott. I think they're going to find some team to dump him off on. I don't know what the return's going to be. Probably nothing. I would pay some team to take Elliott at this point, but I think they're going to need to find something. They can always put Mike McKenna on waivers and hope he gets claimed and then trade Elliott, but this is going to be a very interesting situation overall to watch play out over the next week here before the trade deadline, as to see what they do with this goaltending situation. Brian Elliott, he is a good guy. I think he can still be counted on in a backup role at his age. I don't think he's a starter anymore, but I think he does have at least a little bit of value. There has to be some team out there that's pushing for the playoffs that could use a guy like him. So I think he's going to get traded. I don't think they have a choice to keep him, even if they want to get rid of McKenna and roll with 3 guys for the rest of the season. I just don't think Elliott's going to have a whole lot of time under his belt from here on out. I think it's Hart's net to lose, and you got Cam Talbot, who they obviously wanted if they're going to acquire him. So I think Brian Elliott's time in Philadelphia is probably over. The next one is from Zach. More likely did he get traded, Moose, Ghost, or Simmons? I would be absolutely stunned if Shane Gostisbehere gets moved. I think the Gostisbehere rumors are a fan theory that has gotten so far out of control, and the hysteria that Flyers fans have created for themselves over some rumors that were created by Flyers Twitter is probably too much. I thoroughly believe Wayne Simmons and Brian Elliott get traded. If you want a timeline who gets traded first, I don't know. Depends when Elliott's conditioning stint is over. If he gets up before, maybe the end of the week, a Thursday, Friday, gets called up, then they're probably going to deal him then. Simmons will probably get dealt the day of the trade deadline. There has been chatter that they are going to let him play in the outdoor game, which would be on Saturday the 23rd, and the trade deadline is the 25th. So they're more than likely, I think it probably will be Elliott, if I had to guess which one gets traded first. But I think at the end of the day, Simmons and Elliott are probably going to go, and Gostisbehere is going to stay. The next one is from Art. How do the Flyers clean up their glut of goalies and their overabundance of forward prospects? Well, the thing with the goalies is, even if they keep everybody now, they still won't have this problem in the summer. Even if they do somehow cling on to Elliott and McKenna and all these extra bodies, Michael Neuwirth around, they really don't have that issue moving forward. I believe Carter Hart, and I believe it is Alex Lyon. Yes, Carter Hart and Lyon are the only 2 guys that are signed for next season. Felix Sandstrom is as well, but he is obviously still in Sweden. Will probably come over next season rather, to play with the Phantoms. But Lyon and Hart are still the only guys signed going into next year, goaltending wise. So even if they do keep everybody, McKenna, Neuwirth, Talbot, they're all free agents anyway. But again, I think you're probably going to trade Elliott. I think you're probably just going to keep Neuwirth on IR for the rest of the season. If I had to guess, if he comes back, they can squeeze a conditioning stint out of him. That should hopefully take the rest of the year. The Flyers only have about 6 weeks or so left of the season, so I'm sure they could squeeze in out of him. And even if he does have to come back. I'm sure he'll get injured in practice, getting ready to come back. So I'm not overly concerned. I think they can, lose McKenna rather easily at this point as well. So even if they don't make any real big moves from here on out, this problem will be solved naturally over summer. The forwards is a more interesting question because it's something that, I thought about as well with the Stolars trade is kind of, this is going to be something we're probably going to see quite a bit of over the next, 4 or 5 years, is the Flyers have so many prospects that are, kind of lining up to be just, middle six guys. And, it's a good problem to have, but it's a problem that will catch them sooner or later. About who stays and who goes. I think reasonably you can package quite a few of them. If the Flyers, have come out of the gate strong next year and have a really good season next year, then you can really make some moves and package some people, at the trade deadline and bring a couple stars and make the push. And, just like that, you do get rid of a couple of those guys. But overall, I think the theory has to be that you're going to try and keep them, see what they develop into before you give them away. But, I totally agree that there is a overabundance of forward prospects. Don't know what happens to them, anytime soon, but I think the future plan is going to need to be, see who stays and who goes, and then the ones that stay need to, really keep producing. And, the strongest survive, and we'll see what kind of happens from there. The next one is from Paul. What are the odds Amek gets moved at the deadline? This is an interesting question. If I had to guess right now, probably 0. The fact that he is still playing over Phil Myers, leads me to believe that they still see something in this guy for some reason or another. So I would highly doubt he gets moved. I think best case scenario, and I think we're all keeping our fingers crossed, is that he gets bought out over summer. He's heading into his last year of his deal next season. So, it would make sense to buy him out. I don't know if he's going to get traded. Maybe if you're lucky. I think the right thing to do would be trade him for literally anything at this point. 7th round pick just to get him off our hands, whatever. But again, that contract is ugly. They got 1 more year at $5 million. So, but if there was a time to trade him, I guess it would be this summer, or this trade deadline rather, because, there is only 1 year left on his deal. So it doesn't look nearly as bad as it did, 2-3 years ago. So maybe he gets moved. I would be shocked if he gets moved at the deadline, though. I just don't see it. I don't think teams are that desperate. I don't know the ins and outs of every playoff team at the moment, but I would be remiss if I think that the Flyers would get the privilege of moving McDonald at the deadline. Next one from my OMB Puckcast teammate Isaiah. Who killed JFK? Wasn't it that Oswalt fellow? Was it Roy Oswalt, right? Or was he the pitcher? I think it was the pitcher. The Phillies pitcher in the Astros. It was one of the Oswalts. Was it Patton? The guy from that show. What show was he on? I don't remember. Oh, he was on the King of Queens, right? Hang on, let me Google something quick. Yes, he was in King of Queens. I was right. So it was one of the Oswalts. Maybe it was Roy and Patton or the other guy. What was his name? Oswalt. JFK killer. Lee Harvey Oswald. There you go. Knew it was one of the Oswalds. Close enough. Maybe it was Roy or Patton or Lee. Just nail it down to an Oswald. Next one is from Robert. Why do hot dogs come in 10 per package and hot dog buns come in 8 per package? I don't know. Is that really how it works? I don't think I've ever bought a hot dog runs before. Well, maybe you. I don't have an answer for this one, Robert. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you, bud. Maybe that's just the corporate thing to do. You gotta sell buns and things. I don't know. I'm here to talk Flyers. Why are we talking about hot dogs? Next one is from Dan, why are the Flyers a bunch of pussies? Well, the answer there is simply because Samuel Moran's still in the AHL. When he comes back, things won't happen. There won't be these damn, decapitations by Evgeny Malkin or Anthony Mantha trying to kill Claude Giroux. I think you're going to see maybe a decrease in those things because I think Sam Moran probably won't put up with it too well. I think somebody like him back in the lineup, to quote-unquote enforce things could see a decline of these crazy things that have happened to the Flyers over the last week. Well, boys and girls, that was certainly an interesting Twitter question segment. Feel free to ask me questions on Twitter at DanTheFlyerFan. I will answer them on this show. This is the start of a very busy week of podcasting for myself. We have a brand new O&B Puckcast tomorrow night, which will be Monday. We have Ryan Boyd of Philly Sports Network, and we have Puck Therapy of Broad Street Hockey joining us. So that'll be a big one. Jim and I will return for the Angry and Negative show on Wednesday to get very angry about the Stolarz trade, I'm sure. We have an episode of Brotherly Pod on Friday with Jack Smith of High and Wide Radio. He will join me to talk everything pre-trade deadline. Maybe the Flyers will make a move by then, maybe not. Then we will return Monday night. Another Brotherly Pod will return Monday night the following week, the night of the trade deadline. Jim and I will return with special guest Mike Acito, former teammate of mine at quite a few different sites. So that'll be a good one. We will be back to talk all things Flyers trade deadline and NHL trade deadline, break down any moves and give our opinions there. Going to be a busy week here. As for Twitter plugs, if you're curious, the Carter Hart jersey giveaway on Brotherly Puck still going on. That'll be announced this Saturday, the 23rd, the day of the Stadium Series. The winner will be announced. So if you have not done so yet, you can follow at Brotherly Puck. You can follow at Hart Countdown. Winner must be following both. We will draw a name that Saturday morning. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at DanTheFlyerFan. You want to follow the site, you can do that at Brotherly Puck. If you want to follow this show as well as all the other shows that we do here, you can do that at Brotherly_pod. You want to count down Carter Hart's wins with me, you can do that at Hart Countdown. You can follow O&B Podcast at O&B Puck. So we got a busy week here. I will be back on Wednesday with Jim to talk all things Flyers hockey. As for this has been BPW Radio. Thank you for your wildly entertaining Twitter questions this week. Certainly put me in a better mood after getting all angry about that Stolarz trade. So that has been it for me, boys and girls. I will talk to you next Sunday. Goodbye.